So, welcome back to another Half and Half Scarf football podcast with me, Nick, and my mate Dom. Recording this on Sunday, the 1st of March. For context of some of the things that we'll be talking about in this particular episode, delighted to have chosen a very current subject, which we've called the pressure for success and why clubs are making desperate decisions and the impact of those desperate decisions. This is the first of our new episodes brought to you in association with our new fan support partners, Huddle Up. There was an episode 36 that went out last week all about the work they're doing around mental health and well-being for football fans in the EFL, the Championship and the National League. And please have a listen to that, and we'll give you more details on that at the end of the episode. But without further ado, to discuss the pressure for success and why clubs are making more desperate decisions and the impact of the decisions, let's introduce you as ever to my co-host and my mate Dom. Dom, that's the Everton shirt. Nice to see you. That's the one with the river on it, isn't it? Really. So is that this season?
Yeah, it's this season. Yeah, nice to see you too, mate. Yeah, I thought I'd pick this one again and wear it today in celebration of Everton's amazing away form this season. You know, another great win yesterday at Newcastle, 3-2.
Yeah.
Really good game. Our away form is astonishing this season, mate. I wish we could replicate that at home and give the fans something to get out their seats for. But the away fans are getting a really good deal this season. So yeah, in homage of our away form.
Excellent. So, bizarrely, in homage of your away form, you're wearing a home shirt. Hey, listen.
Well, they did wear in my defence, they wore this top yesterday. And most of our away games, where they've done really well, they've been wearing our home top. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
Context accepted.
Context,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm wearing my favourite shirt for a long time, my Borough current away shirt, and I'm wearing it in fear or homage or worry or whatever. We've got a massive away game tomorrow night away at Birmingham City. And before this episode goes out on Monday, the 9th of March, we'll have also played away at QPR. Tomorrow night, Monday, is a massive game for Middlesbrough because this weekend every result went against us and it went for everybody around us. So we have to win to maintain that sort of gap and maintain that kind of momentum. But also, for Birmingham City, also the results around them went really badly for them. Wrexham, Southampton, various other teams winning. And if Birmingham don't win tomorrow, their hopes of the automatic, their playoff hopes, shall we say, are, I'm not saying they're extinguished, but they're not far off. So, without further ado, there's a bit of an issue going on with my screen there, isn't there? I think in terms of whether that's a loose wire or something, I don't know.
But yeah.
Bit of glitchy. So let's get into the subject. Teams under pressure making stupid pressurized decisions. A bit of context, really. A few things kind of grabbed our thought process on this. I guess the most recent one was Eric Ramsey's 44-day absolutely abject reign at West Brom. And 44 days, exactly the number of days that Brian Clough lasted at Leeds all those years ago. Now, the Brian Clough incident in the 70s was so rare, 44 days for a manager. It spawned a film, a book, international news, all sorts of whatever. Eric Ramsey being sacked after 44 days at West Brom hardly made TalkSport. It was that like, oh, okay. Because it's so regular. And that's the context of this episode, isn't it? Like, what the hell is going on with short-termism, panic buttons, just, I don't get it. Because every season before a ball's kicked, we all know how many European places are available. We all know how many spots are available for relegation and promotion and relegation from the Championship and promotion from the League One and etc. Before a ball is kicked, we know. So not every team can achieve automatic promotion or playoffs or stay in the Premier League or get the European spots. And yet, at some point, regularly, and we'll come on to Forest in a minute, people just pull the trigger because they're absolutely shitting themselves. What's your thoughts on this current trend for short-termism, Dom? It strikes me, it's bonkers.
It's mad, mate. I think we and you are definitely on the same page on this one. It's crazy. In any profession, what are you going to achieve in 44 days? You've literally only just got your feet under the table. You haven't got any time to implement any kind of philosophy. You can't really get to know the players properly. They don't get to know your coaching methods. Most of the time when you're employed, you're literally under pressure immediately. So the owners don't really seem to factor that into they're employing these people and putting them straight into a pressurized environment. But also, it's, as always, Nick, as we always say, they keep saying, oh, it's been a thorough process, lots of due diligence has gone on. No, it hasn't. If it had, you'd have faith in your decision and who you've brought in. I say this all the time. We've discussed this many times, haven't we? You'd have faith in who you've brought in and you'd back them. And you'd give them a damn sight more than just over a month to prove themselves. But also, unfortunately, and this might sound a little bit like, in hindsight, oh, I told you so, etc. But it's not meant like that. But some of these decisions, as fans, you can see they're the wrong ones. We said straight away, and it's not like, oh, we've called it, look at us, we're great. But me and you had reservations straight away about the merits of Eric Ramsey doing well in the Championship.
Yeah.
Because also clubs are employing coaches who've come from a different environment. Eric Ramsey's been a coach at Minnesota in the MLS. It's a completely safe, sterile, closed system where the pressure is not the same as trying to get a club out, stop the club getting into a bottom three in the Championship. A bit like Wilfred Nancy at Celtic earlier in the season, did he come from Columbus Crew or somewhere like that? And from there to Celtic, it's just so different. And yet these owners are claiming that they've done their research and their homework. They haven't, because they're not employing the right people in the first place. But if they feel they have, and these people clearly have skills, they're not bad coaches, or they're not unknowledgeable football people. So for me, I think you said the word bonkers. It is, because I don't really think these owners of these clubs realise the damage they're doing, because they'll employ someone, then sack them. But look at all the carnage in the background that goes on. Look at the effect on the team and the players and what they have to go through.
Two things you touched on there. One briefly, and we are recording this on the morning of an Old Firm game. You mentioned Celtic there. Absolute, wrong decision, Wilfred Nancy, wrong person, wrong level, wrong background, to go into the SPL. But I think every neutral fan today is hoping for a draw in the Old Firm derby, so that Hearts maintain that little gap and hopefully win the Scottish Premier League. So fingers crossed, by the time this goes out, they'll play 2 more games and Celtic might well be top or whatever, but hopefully not. Hopefully it's a good draw, and that Hearts maintain that. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, what I would say is about not getting time. I think the problem that we've got is that occasionally a team get a new manager bounce. You've got to look at Carrick, right? Carrick at Man U. Now, I think Michael Carrick's doing a really good job, simply because he isn't the previous guy. I've had a mental block. What do they call the previous guy? Thank you, Ruben Amorim, had a mental block there. So the fact that he's not Ruben Amorim, he's gone into a club that Amorim, behind the scenes, seems to have broken quite a few of the players, doesn't he? Like Kobe Manu and people like that, where they had fallen out of love with the club. They're Man United. They were being treated, from a managerial leadership point of view. I don't think the communication from Amorim was great. So Carrick's just got in and gone, I'm a decent guy, I know football, I understand about playing round holes and round pegs and square holes and all that kind of thing. So let's just do that for a little while. Now, when he then has such initial success, every other club looks at it, don't they, and go, well, why is our manager not doing that? Yeah. Well, they're not all following. They're not all following. They're not all following.
Yeah, it's a really good point you made there. Other clubs definitely watch what's going on at other clubs and think, oh, we want a bit of that. I think what they fail to realise there with Carrick as well is, and we know this from his time at Borough, and we've said before, he got nearly 3 years. It was, I think his time was done at the end, because he was very, very stubborn. And we both said we both wish him well. He's a really good, talented coach in the making.
Yeah.
Just needs to adapt and learn from what he's done, because he was quite rigid and stubborn. At United, he's got the luxury of, he knows the club really well, but also he has got, let's face it, really good quality players to play with. But I think an advantage he's had there is he's just simplified it. think Ruben Amorim, even though he's probably a good coach, was very much in time trying to implement his methods, whereas Carrick's just gone back to a traditional way of United playing, and he's utilising all the players around him.
Yeah.
So you could say, actually, you know, I've done this because I've just done exactly that. I've kept it really simple. I have to say, when I think I pointed in the last pod maybe that when Everton played them at Hill Dickinson last week, and United weren't that good. We dominated the entire game. Should have definitely got something out of it. They caught us on a breakaway goal, which was a really good goal. Fair enough, no arguments there. But they really weren't great. They're not what you'd class as Man United. But that doesn't really matter. What he's done is he's got them playing and winning games home and away, and all of a sudden they're in the Champions League spots. It's just sometimes just tweaking and keeping things very, very simple. But also in terms of time, what else are United going to do this season? You can't sack an interim manager, surely. You can't add the pressure even more. So, I think the other point you made is other teams looking at that. It's a bit naive, isn't it? Because every club's dynamic is very different. What goes on in the background, the expectations, the quality of the player, what you're allowed to do at the club, who you bring in to help you. You can't just think, oh, we want to do that, so therefore we'll do it. You really got to be careful in terms of it could go horribly wrong, and it often does, doesn't it?
Well, I think he set a benchmark that's unrealistic elsewhere, and I think that's why you like your Spurs. Spurs appointed Igor Tudor. They might as well have appointed Igor from Frankenstein, to be fair, as far as I can see. But first game in charge, he made a massive difference. He's never going to make a difference in one game. He's never going to make a difference between now and the end of the season. I would not be surprised if Spurs don't get him. If they don't get a Michael Carrick-esque bounce from Igor Tudor, I wouldn't be surprised if they sack him before the end to try and desperately get over the line for the last two games. Hang on a sec. Now, I think what they look at Carrick and they go, well, they've had a bounce. Why shouldn't we get a bounce? And when they don't get a bounce, they realise that the players are not as good. The club's not set up the same. Like you said, it's Spurs who are very Spursy. It's not Man United who've got a history of winning stuff. And the expectations of the chairman, the board, and indeed the fans is just out of kilter. And if I'm a fan of a Forest or of a Spurs or whoever, Michael Carrick's killing me. Michael Carrick's killing me because I'm thinking, well, he can do it, but I don't. There's the context of it is all wrong. Let's just touch on Spurs, right? Igor Tudor. Right, due diligence, really? Igor Tudor? He looks like he's been picked out of a lucky bag, doesn't he? Like, right, okay, who's available? Who can we justify to our fans that we've done some credence on in terms of checking? Who's done really well before? Oh, hang on, he hasn't done really well at all. He's been a bit shit at Juventus. But you know what? He's the guy for us. What's that about?
Well, let's just look at it. Really, if you were a fan of that club, surely you'd be scratching your head thinking, what the hell is this? I mean, I think that really highlights and we'll go on to discuss some more that are crazy, but how crazy is that? So what you're saying is, you've definitely sacked a really good coach in Thomas Frank. Whether it's worked at Spurs, there's obviously stuff maybe in the background that there's a dynamic wrong. I don't know what's gone wrong there. But you're telling me that things would have significantly improved by sacking Frank and bringing Tudor in. You see, for me as well, and I know social media can tweak things or make things look like something's going on when actually it doesn't. But I've watched Spurs a few times this season, God knows why, and you do see a lot in the body language of the players when they come off and the way the chemistry and the body language with Frank and with this new guy. And you do think, actually, a lot of this is on the players. It really is on the players. So why is it the manager that takes the hit? Surely you just, as a club, you just say, we have every faith in this manager. If you don't like him, you don't like him, but we're not sacking him. Get off your arses, earn your money, do what you need to do as you're asked to do. And it's football. And I think the key thing I'm going to say here is this is where it gets dangerous for me is, like you just said, if he doesn't achieve anything, you've gone through all of that, you'd almost be better sticking with Frank. It's almost like stick or twist, stick. Just for me, it's stick every time. Unless something's gone catastrophically wrong somewhere, which I don't think it has, surely you just stick with that situation, have faith in it, because surely it's more disruptive and puts more pressure if the new manager doesn't get any results, because the players feel it even more as well. So they can make a situation not better, but far worse. Far worse.
Well, 4 of the bottom 5 in the Premier League have changed their managers, and
Yeah.
that proves that because they're still in the bottom five, it's not really the best decision they've ever made. I think you touched on a point there. There's a lot of, I think, social media pressure from keyboard warriors who probably never ever set foot in the stadium.
Yeah.
It's they are the vocal significant minority, these people, but my God, they're noisy, aren't they? Social media keyboard warriors. Oh, sack the manager, sack the manager, sack the manager. They never go. And I think chairman and boards look at that. Obviously, the in-ground experience of booing at full time and all that doesn't help. And they say you've lost the crowd, you've lost you've lost your job. But if four out of the bottom five have changed their managers and not made a bloody difference to where they are in the league, surely you'd look at that as a responsible board or chairman and go, that's not always the answer. And if you consider that Forest have had four permanent managers in that 4 out of 5 in the bottom, that's like 8 managers have changed jobs in the bottom 5 teams this season, and they're
Yeah.
still down there. Let's take Forest, right? Forest intrigued me.
Oh,
Hang
yes.
on. Absolutely. I've written down the word shit show, right? So the fans love Marinakis apparently because he's backing them, he's putting the money in and all that, and he bleeds Forest, but he doesn't. He bleeds Panathinaikos, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Really,
of course he
whatever.
does.
But
Yeah.
anyway, I think Forest, if you add up how much compensation they've paid managers, backroom staff, coaching teams that they've let go, it's almost as much as it would have cost them to get relegated to the Championship with some
Yeah.
parachute payments. It's absolutely bonkers. And you know what? As every right-minded kind of neutral football fan thinks, I hope they go down. I really hope Forest go down because I like Forest, by the way. It's a great away trip and I like their fans. But I don't think that any right-minded football fan would say that's the right thing to do to any club. So I'm hoping to go down. I genuinely am. And I apologise, Forest fans,
Yeah.
but
I
it's not on you. It's on the shit show that your club has been this season. Ridiculous.
I just think Marinakis is a bit of a joke, to be honest. We've touched on this in other pods when we've talked about it before, but it all stems from that falling out with Nuno. Now, I know we said at the time, way back a few months ago, that there might have been murmurings that Marinakis wanted to bring in Postecoglou anyway at some point. I don't know why, but Nuno came out and said, he didn't feel like he had the same backing in the summer. Now, I don't think Nuno was angling to get away from that job. He seemed happy there. He'd been backed. He brought in a lot of players he wanted. He was getting success. Marinakis just seems to have pulled the trigger. Now I know, we're talking about it. It could be something completely different, but there must be elements of what we're talking about that are accurate in some way. Because I said at the time, and I'll say it again now, surely for the good of the club and your own ego and the fact that you've got something really good going on, and some of it is luck. You've brought in good players, but let's face it, some of it is always luck in how those players gel and trigger and get things going and moving. As an owner and a manager, you just say, yeah, okay, we can agree to disagree. Maybe I haven't done this, but maybe you shouldn't have spoken like that. Let's find some common ground and carry on working. Are you honestly telling me Nuno wouldn't rather just be there carrying on his job and trying to be successful? So you replace Nuno with Postecoglou, who's a good manager who got treated pretty shabbily at Spurs. I know Spurs fans will have lots of different opinions on whether it was right or wrong he went. Still a good manager and didn't deserve to be treated the way he did. And at Forest, again, what was it, 30 days, 40 days? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you bring in Dyche because you're suddenly panicking because you're sinking down the table. Dyche did exactly what he's supposed to do, and yet he gets criticised and sacked for it, even though his stats really stack up in terms of what he was achieving, in terms of they're not on the slide. But you're never going to get anything sparkling or amazing with Dyche. So, again, do your homework. You know what he's about. If it's suddenly not what you want, don't employ him in the first place. So then you bring in Vitor Pereira, who apparently Wolves were like, well, he's not very good. Yet, had thought he was so good they'll give him a 3-year contract, and then 44 days later, or whatever it is, he's not good for us, let's sack him. So he hasn't suddenly become a terrible coach, and he's now in at Forest, who were, you'd have to say, are in a much better position, in terms of player resource and where they are in the league than Wolves are. So he's gone from Wolves to Nottingham Forest in less than half a season, and there's a good chance he might not last the season as well at this rate unless he turns things around. How crazy is that, mate? Really, the whole situation. But look at the upheaval for the players. Look at all of new backroom teams, new philosophies. It's not about it's bad enough for the fans watching that and in going through that craziness, but it does massively impact the players. So if those players are managing to get through it, keep on going in Europe,
Mm.
you know. But like, look at Forest results. They're really hit and miss. They are
Yeah.
really down there, and they are in a relegation battle. So he's created, maybe it's not him entirely, but they've created that as a club when they could have just actually stepped back and said, "Hang on, we don't want this noise. We don't need this. Let's get past our egos and what the problems are. Let's try and resolve it and start again." But as we both know, football's a crazy business. It doesn't run like anything else, does it?
Well, no, it bloody doesn't. I mean, to be fair, some of them couldn't run a battle, let alone a club, some of them, to be fair. But let's touch two things on there. Vitor Pereira was the guy who saved Wolves from relegation last season, right?
Yeah.
So that's why Forest have got him, because he saved Wolves from relegation. And yet he didn't win any of his first 10 or 11 games for Wolves this season, was sacked within 40 odd days, right? So if I'm Marinakis, and God forbid I was as lunatic as he is, I wouldn't mind being a pound behind him, but my view is, am I getting the Vitor Pereira who kept Wolves up, or I'm getting the Vitor Pereira who couldn't win a bloody raffle, let alone a match at the start of this season? So why is he the right guy? So that's the first thing. Second thing you mentioned there about, giving them time to build momentum and do things right. This isn't always about the Premier League, and we're going to talk about the Championship shortly, but I've got a couple of things to add to this. Iriola at Bournemouth was under real pressure about 8 weeks, 6, 8 weeks ago, because he had a bad run of form. And they were sliding down the table, and I think there was something like 14, 15, 16, something like that. And they couldn't buy a win. I think they won 1 in 10. But he'd lost all his best players in the summer, Kirkers and various others. Then he lost Semenyo in January. Now he's had a really good run, and the ninth, at no point did you hear anyone saying about Bournemouth and Iriola, oh, he's got to go. However, I bet there were some rumblings of stupid fans on social media going, he's taken us as far as... I hate that phrase.
I hate that. He's taken us as far as he can.
Taken us as far as he can. It's like, piss off. Absolutely shut up, So Iriola is a good example of just sometimes in the Premier League or in any league, certainly the Championship we're going to talk in a minute, form is temporary, class is permanent, but the reality is the results are bonkers, so they can beat anyone and lose to anyone at any one time.
We discussed this, didn't we, off air on Friday when we were discussing this episode, and I said to you exactly that. I said, what I'm really sick of now is it's so reactive. So as soon as your club starts going through a bit of a downturn, it's panic stations, everything's catastrophic. When Ariola is doing exactly that. He's proving the point, and other managers have done it for other clubs where sometimes you just have to face the fact that you face a tough time. It could be through some injuries or just a slight lack of form and confidence. You hit a wobble. But if you're a good manager and you're a good team and you're all together, you will turn it around. Things do change.
Yeah.
And he's proved that. I mean, he's a really talented coach. He's a great coach. If you look at the players he's lost in the last 2 years, it's absolutely insane. And he's still turned it around. And it's just having that faith in that time and being comfortable thinking, we've still got the right guy, we've still got the right team. And that's the thing, isn't it? If you stick with that, it should reward you because you've done your diligence. And if you stick by your beliefs, it should be, we've got faith in this. We're going to be okay. And some clubs, I admire more the ones where they even think, well, actually, it's not all on the manager. What if they did go down? Some clubs would still back him to the point of he's still the right guy to take us back up, and we have faith in what's going on. They just accept that sometimes it's not about what the manager hasn't done.
Yeah. I mean, on that subject, weirdly, Burnley and Scott Parker, I kind of don't get that. I don't get, I'm all for giving people time, and I'm all for giving people, the opportunity. But Scott Parker, for me, I don't know how he's in a job in the Premier League. He's never done it in the Premier League. He's pedantic. He's just pedestrian. I know they scored 3 yesterday and were unlucky not to get an equaliser late on, but and they've started showing a bit of fight. But Burnley, the kind of club, they backed Dyche twice when they got relegated and he came back up, didn't they? So, in that respect, I accept that, but I think, God, they've played turgid football more often than not. I've got a couple of things to finish off before we do from the Premier League, before we go on to something else, right? pre-season, Daniel Farke, we've mentioned this on a previous pod. Daniel Farke was under pressure pre-season. Like, he's never going to do it in the Premier League. And why have we kept Farke? Why haven't we gone for a bigger name or a better name? And Daniel Farke, I think yesterday they lost to City. I think they've only lost 2 in 11 or something at Elland Road. And Leeds, I'm not saying they're safe yet because they're not, but they're out punching last time they came up when they went down abjectly without a whimper, didn't they? When they had that American guy in charge, I can't remember his name. You really useless guy.
Yeah.
Jesse March, yeah, Christ. Again, but the last thing on the Premier League I want to talk about, and we've talked about madness at Forest, we've talked about Spurs just being trigger pullers, we've talked about, various other Iriola being under temporary pressure, absolutely bonkers. This has to be the most stupid comment I've ever heard, right? And it comes from a guy who's actually got history for stupid comments on a more than daily basis. So I do listen to TalkSport sometime, not all the time. I listened on Friday, and Gabby Agbonlahor, first of all, thick as shit. Gabby Agbonlahor was making comments about Unai Emery and Villa because they'd lost at Wolves the night before, and or lost at home to Wolves, I think, the night before. And I think they drawn the week before. You said they drew, didn't they?
Drew against Burnley.
Drew against Burnley. So Villa are currently third in the Premier League. Okay, way above any fan's expectation 3 seasons ago when Steven Gerrard was in control or whatever. Right? They're also still in the FA Cup and in the last 16 of European competition. And Gabby Agbonlahor, I think he used the phrase Unai Emery should do better. Now, he should know all about doing better, Gabby Agbonlahor, because he was the most abject footballer who should do better. He was just a fast runner. That was it. Couldn't hit camels out of the banjo more often than not. He's Villa's top scorer in the Premier League until Ollie Watkins took it off him recently. And he's only Villa's top scorer in the Premier League because he had that many chances and 1,000,000,001 to go. Some are going to go in off your arse, aren't they? Gabby Agbonlahor is thick as shit. If he thinks Unai Emery should do better, and he's a broadcaster, jokingly called a broadcaster, he's got an audience, hasn't he? That is irresponsible on his part, as a Villa, inverted commas, legend, and as a ex-Villa player, to even raise that conversation to a national discussion point. Unbelievable.
I get really. I don't listen to people like him. I find a lot of these pundits and ex-players, they're just so boring because they don't bring anything new. They just come out with the old same cliched shit, and it's usually for clicks and likes and let's raise a bit of debate. It's absolute rubbish. Seriously, look at Villa 5 seasons ago. They literally scraped to stay in the Premier League, having fought their way back up. Look at how they've been over the last 10 years. Gone through some real struggles. Are you honestly telling me that where Unai Emery has elevated them to, bearing in mind you could argue they've got no real world-class player. I know we've got the debate of world-class players, but if you look at Villa, they've got some really great players, but look at how he's got them playing. Look how they play as a team. They're third. Yes, as a fan, even you can't tell me even Unai Emery won't be frustrated that they've dropped 4 points out of the last 6. In 2 games that you'd expect them to win and keep the pressure on City and Arsenal and keep them in the mix. Losing 4 points, losing ground 4 points to those 2 teams is hard. But look at the bigger picture. Like you said, they're still in 3 competitions. They're third. It's also hard to get into that routine of navigating and consistently playing in Europe and doing well in the league. It takes years of practice to get into that routine of being able to perform on both fronts, because so many clubs struggle to do that.
It also takes a squad depth as well. I don't think Villa have got that. Villa's first 11, when they're all fit, will give anyone a really, really good toe-to-toe game in the Premier League or in any competition. But you start playing Thursday, Sunday, then you've got FA Cup games and midweeks and all that kind of thing, and that stretches that squad thin. And John McGinn's been missing. Okay, I'm not saying Villa run around John McGinn because they've got Watkins, they've got Morgan Rogers and players. I think Morgan Rogers has played every minute of every game this season. Now, you're not telling me that that's good for Morgan Rogers. It's certainly not good for England, by the way. But needs must. But their squad's not broad enough or deep enough
It's
to
not.
actually maintain all three. Now, they were
But,
never going to win the Premier League, were they?
but just to be in the mix of even challenging and for people to think that they could, I'd love to watch and see Villa win the league.
Yeah, I would.
But it's such it's I find it such a flippant and it's just a throwaway comment. He must do better. Unai Emery is getting more out that team. He's doing better every week because he's performing and getting them to perform above expectations every week.
Yeah,
Every team's going to have blips. To be honest, not every team, and you can't expect to win every single week. It's very rare that you'll get a team that will just consistently win and play
yeah,
well every week. It just doesn't happen. And to be honest, I know from an individual club perspective, you'd love to watch your team win every week, but realistically, is it going to happen? No, it's not. You're playing good teams week in, week out.
yeah.
Your team will be tired. They will be jaded. It does have an impact in terms of what day you're playing and how often since you last played your game. Excuse me. So,
Bless you.
yeah, but if I was a Villa fan, I'd be honestly, hand on heart, I'd be pinching myself every week, thinking, "Look where we were 5 years ago."
Yeah,
I'm just enjoying the ride because very quickly it can change. And again, Villa will be very mindful of the fact of what they've got, and can you honestly see Villa being rash and pulling the trigger? See, some clubs would be so stupid as well. We didn't win us the league or a cup, so we're starting again. They'll never do that because they realise what they've got.
what they've got is an elite manager, and that's
Elite
it.
manager.
Simple as
Yeah,
elite manager, and he's so elite. He would never be seen dead at somewhere like Forest, would he, or Spurs? But there you go. Moving on, right?
But you made a good point as well, though, because I do think broadcasters sometimes he's just
Ha!
it. Yeah, I think they do have a responsibility to perhaps see things from both sides and say things as they are, because if people are listening to him, and if they are, God knows why,
Yeah,
but they can jump on board with all that nonsense and think,
yeah.
oh, well, Gabriel Bonhorse said it. Well, just be a bit more responsible and have a bit more of a thought process around it, really. And I'm a bit shocked because he's an ex-player, and when he played for Villa, there were no great shakes, so he's hardly in any. He's not really particularly qualified to speak on that, is he? Because it's like, well, surely as a fan, you should be appreciative of where they are and think we're punching above our weight, so let's just keep it going.
I will qualify that I didn't actively listen to Gabriel Bonhor. He was on, and I caught it. Please don't judge me for listening to Gabriel Bonhor, because the minute he comes on, normally I've turned the volume down or something else on. Now let's drop down to the division that I love particularly, and you love as a Borough fan as well, the Championship, which I mean, we talked about knee-jerk reactions. We talk about bonkers management decisions. The Championship as a whole is a bonkers division, isn't it? Right? We love it. That's why we love it. The carnage, the unpredictability, the brutality of it, all that kind of thing, right? But so I think decisions get made in there that are also probably very, very knee-jerk. But the one I want to start off with is the exact opposite of that. I heard a report 2 weeks ago from the two Hollywood owners of Wrexham. And they came out publicly and stated that Phil Parkinson has got a job for life whilst ever we are here. And you think to yourself, you know what? Absolutely brilliant. Now, whether that is absolutely, whether or not they sack him at some point in the future, I don't know. But to hear that as a manager, to hear that as a fan and as a player from your two your two board directors who put in the money in and taken Wrexham on this amazing journey, I think, you know what, that is, and I don't think it's any coincidence, by the way, that since that announcement, Wrexham have been brilliant on the pitch. I think the two are connected. Phil Parkinson has been told in a Championship where sacking is probably the most common thing, you're under no pressure ever at Wrexham. You've got a job for life for what you've done for us. I think that is astonishing and to be massively applauded. And look at the results they're getting as a result of it.
Yeah, it's refreshing to hear, but I'm afraid to say I do think some of it is empty words, because if they do go up to the Premier League and he doesn't do very well, the proof's in the pudding there. I think I'll respect what they've said more if when they go up, and it is a matter of when, because I think they will do it in the next, if not this season, they'll do it very soon. I'd love to see it that they actually, if they're true to their word, they'll let him have the whole season. And if they go
Yeah,
back down and stick with him, I'll be like, credit to you because you actually meant what you said.
yeah,
If they suddenly have a knee-jerk panic and suddenly think they need to bring some worldie in, I'll be like, well, it was just words, wasn't it? And I actually also think, and maybe this is what they mean, and hopefully they're clever enough to see this, that actually maybe it's just like, well, what makes us great is this has developed over years. And even though they've evolved players and brought in new players, they're all coming into this system that's been gradually built and working. And hopefully they're mindful of that. And as soon as you start tinkering with that and breaking it up, it can all go horribly wrong. So I
yeah,
hope they do mean what they say. But when they do go up, and it is just a case of when, just stick with it and let the guy go. But equally, he's not done well in the championship before, so I applaud them because they have backed him because he's in
yeah.
previous jobs. It didn't go well for him in the championship for Phil Parkinson. So I am glad they stuck because they could have very easily thought, all right, we've got up a level, we need to elevate ourselves, and they haven't. And I applaud them for that because it's worked really well.
Well, it has, and the reality is, at the start of the season, they didn't start that well, did they? So, it would have been easy to do that knee-jerk reaction.
Flying now, they're really
Oh,
flying.
they are.
Yeah.
I'm going to say to you, 2 seconds. I'm going to say to you, with regard to the cynicism, I'm exactly the same as you, cynical. But what I do like is in the heart and the heat of battle in the championship, fighting for a playoff place, they've come out and said that to give
Yes,
him the confidence.
that's really that point is a really good point you make, and that is refreshing to hear. And it almost does mean the manager's like, it's the pressure's off, and it also it's like they back me and they're saying it publicly, which is a real confidence booster, and that's
Yeah,
it does add strength because it means that the players know the manager's liked and backed and doing a really good job, and they can see what he's doing behind the scenes because it's working, and the players are
yeah.
delivering as well. I mean, what a ride, by the way! Just as a quick
Oh,
aside, I mean, my mate who I work with is a Wrexham season ticket holder, and he's been going for years. In the 10 or so years they've been in the National League, and what a ride! So, you know, the fact that they could actually do it this season is incredible to think in this. But it must be a head trip for him. Years of watching National League football, and in the space of 4 years, 5 years, it's like, oh my God, we're in the Premier League. This is
yeah.
nuts. And it is a brilliant story. It
Well,
really
we
is.
we at Borough have got 12 games left, and the one that is just the crystallised horizon for me is the last game of the season, and we're away at Wrexham, and we might need to win to achieve something like automatic promotion. Hopefully, we might have nailed it before then, but it's unlikely. We might have to go there and win, and they might
And
have
so
to.
might they.
And they might have
What
to
a
win
game
to
of
get
football that
in the
might be.
playoffs, and I can't get away from the fact that that's going to be. I mean, I've got sorted. I've got hotel accommodation. We'll definitely get tickets because of the point system. So I'll definitely be there with Rob and Julie. And it's like, wow. And that's Wrexham, doing really, really well. Then what I want to compare and contrast with is Chris Davies at Birmingham, because at various stages of the season, he's been under pressure from keyboard warriors, social media, fans saying that they weren't doing the right thing. I think they've done really well in the January transfer window. They've brought in some really good players. They've first team players, not squad players. They've brought in first team players who've come in and made a big difference. However, they've had a little bit of a stuttering form recently. And as I say, we're recording this the day before Middlesbrough go to St Andrews. Now, fingers crossed as a Borough fan that we win. If we win, I think Chris Davies is under pressure. And you look at it and go, you know what? Okay, it might be because of the money you've spent, therefore the expectations go up. But the money they spent in January, they won't have given him time to embed those players properly in less than a month to get the best out of them. And I think if they sack Chris Davies or put Chris Davies under pressure at Birmingham, I think that's all wrong as well, because coming up from the League One, irrespective of the money you've spent and the expectations and the stupid fans who were HMS pissed the league and all that kind of thing at the start of the season before a ball was kicked, I think if they finish 10th or 8th or even 12th, that's a good first season back in the Championship. But, fans being what they are and owners being what they are, and he's the worst thing about their owners, they're American. And that's the bit that gets me. American owners don't seem to have I mean, Birmingham fans can tell me all day long they've bought into Birmingham, they've bought into the culture of the city, whatever. No, they haven't. They've bought into the idea of buying a club in the second city in England to try and get them to the Premier League and all that that entails. That's money. It's kudos. It's all the things that go with it. So, I think if Birmingham sack Chris Davies, it'll be an absolute travesty because I think he's doing a decent job, and form is up and down a little bit, and that's because it's the bloody Championship. Very few teams, smash it. Borough went on a 6-game winning run, won every game back to back, including a brilliant game at Sheffield United a couple of weeks ago. We lose at Coventry, can't beat two teams in the bottom three at home, and suddenly we're under pressure in terms of our league position. But that's the Championship. No one's saying Kim Hellberg out, are they, for Christ's sake?
It's how it goes. It is a really brutal league. The adjustment from League One to the Championship is kind of similar to the Championship to the Premier League. It is. It's a hard jump. The quality is significantly different, and a lot of clubs fail. So if you can manage to bed yourself in and compete, you're doing really well. Yeah, for me, Chris Davies is doing a fantastic job. I don't think his job should be under threat at all.
No.
And yeah, the owners have got big ideas and everything else. I think they're looking. I agree with you. I'm very cynical about. I mean, Everton are owned by Americans, and we're a year in, and I'm very mistrusting of American ownership. I just am. I don't really think they understand community very well. I don't think they really understand the traditions of what football is. They very much want to do it their way. They are very much cash and money driven. I'd like to think that some are capable of wanting to learn and adapt and really embrace what football is. That's not their way, but we'll wait and see. The jury's out for me with the Everton ownership. We'll wait and see how that pans out. And there's many examples of where you can see it's been really bad, and a few that have been, highlights and good stories. Wrexham being one of them. The Birmingham guys. There's been overtures already. The way they're already sucking up to the top 6 in the Premier League in terms of we need to respect them and what they bring to the game and everything. It's like, shut up, seriously, Just shut your mouth. Stop grovelling and pandering to the top 6 and all of that crap, because you're not in the Premier League yet. And I do, I wish Birmingham well. I don't mind what they're trying to do. I'm a bit dubious of building this massive stadium. It's like you're not really filling St Andrews. So where you're going to suddenly get, triple your fan base from to fill that every week. If it goes wrong, that's a massive elephant in the room, really.
It could be Darlington FC all over again, couldn't it? In terms of that.
Yeah, just be careful what you wish for. Don't try and become something that you're not, or do it slowly. Wrexham are doing it slowly. Birmingham seems to be wanting to get there very, very quickly and say, look at us. It's not really about that. I don't really measure football like that, mate. I never have done. For me, it's not really about how amazing your stadium is, how many fans you get in the door. It's what you mean to your community. And Birmingham are a fantastic club. They're a big old club. They've got good respect anyway. You don't need to be trying to be, what everyone else is. Just go slowly and enjoy the ride. I love what they're doing. They've been through some rough times of late. So I just think they need to look at it and go, actually, we're punching and we're doing really, really well. And do you know what? Like you said, they've signed good players. If they're doing well now, and they are, and they're wobbling week in, week out, they're very unpredictable. They can get turned over, but then they can equally turn you over. Just give it time. Next season, if they add some more good players, and I think Chris Davies is doing a really good job there.
Yeah.
If they sack him, I don't think they'll sack him if they do before the end of the season, that would be crazy. But if they do, it's like, you're not doing what you did with John Eustace and setting yourself back. Recognise what you've got and the fact that he's in tune with the club and the players. Let it go again next year and see where it gets you.
I suspect if Wrexham and Birmingham don't go up this season, they'll give any parachute payment team a real go next season. They'll be top 2, top 6 and whatever. Yeah. And sometimes you just got to wait your time, haven't you, and just be a bit patient. So let's just talk about the same principle in the Premier League as the Championship. So you take Sheffield Wednesday have maintained their manager, right? And that's because, of the situation at Sheffield Wednesday. They're not going to sack anyone. He's doing what he can with absolutely no resources, etc. But 4 of the bottom 6, if you include Wednesday in those bottom 6, have changed their manager. The only one who hasn't is Portsmouth with John Mousinho. Now, I think John Mousinho is a great young manager. coach. I don't know what the job title is, whatever, but he's a great guy to have in charge at Pompey. And yeah, they are, flirting with relegation, but their budget suggests they should flirt with relegation. What usually happens in the Championship is budgets usually define at the end of the season. You look at the league table and you go, right, broadly speaking, within budgetary constraints, the bottom 6 or 8 will have the smallest budgets. Maybe with the odd exception, and Millwall being the odd exception currently at the moment in the top 6,
Yeah.
the top 6 or top 8 have probably got the top 6 or 8 budgets. So, but you get an exceptional, Millwall doing fantastically well. Alex Neil or whatever. Yeah, they're not a big budget club, but they're doing brilliantly well on that basis. But so,
and I hope they back him, by the way, and I hope they stick with him because he's doing a fantastic job there. I hope if they don't succeed and get into the playoffs, they don't just suddenly pull the plug on him because he's doing great things there.
I'm more worried about him getting our second spot, mate, in playoffs. But anyway, moving on from that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, look, if you're at the bottom of the league with a small budget, why are you sacking a manager to bring somebody else in on the same small budget and expecting different results? Because every statistical analysis will tell you if you're in the bottom 6 spenders in terms of budget in the Championship, you are probably going to fight every week in the bottom 6 in the Championship and finish somewhere down there. What you've got to do is do a John Mousinho at Portsmouth and say, right, let's build some stability. And maybe we finish 6th bottom and then next season we finish mid-table. Then after that we can put some more money into it from, confidence and investment, and we might get to top half. I just don't get why clubs with small budgets, which they all nearly are at the bottom. Although you look at Leicester, that's probably wrong actually. Leicester, no, they're just a shit show really as a club. They've got Billy Big Bollocks sort of Premier League players who are not up for the fight and think they're better than they are in that respect. But they've got Gary Rowett, who Gary Rowett's job is purely to save them, isn't it? Leicester fans will not accept Gary Rowett next season as their long-term manager. They just won't, because they'll think they're better than that and bigger than that. If he keeps them up, he's done his job. And they'll look at Gary Rowett with sniffy, snotty, holier-than-thou attitude, saying, well, Gary Rowett's not the man for Leicester. Well, he's the man who keeps you up if he keeps you up, isn't he? So, don't be sacking your managers in the hope that it's the right decision when evidence suggests you get no manager bounce. There's no bounces at all out of those 4 in the bottom 6 who've changed their managers. John Mousinho, I'm hoping, I've got a mate who's a big Portsmouth fan. Hi, Chris Weeks. And I'm hoping that, Portsmouth stay up. Great club, great, I would say great away experience. We lost to them, so it wasn't that great when I went this season. But why are people doing this and thinking that it's like madness, isn't it? Definition of madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. You only get different results very occasionally. You only get a Michael Carrick very occasionally. You only get who was the guy who took Forest? Steve Cooper, when Forest were at the bottom and he took them up to the you only get, that's an occasion. It's not the norm. Please don't think that making knee-jerk, stupid pressure reactions is going to get you a Steve Cooper or a Michael Carrick at Borough where he took us from the bottom to the playoffs, or Carrick at Man United now. The norm is you don't get a manager bounce. You might get a lucky win, and people go, new manager bounce. The stats don't absolutely back up a new manager bounce.
They don't. Look at Steve Cooper at Leicester. He got less than 2 months. I mean, what was that about? So if that's your approach, don't employ him. So just crazy. But equally, and again, look at the madness of it all. Leicester in the summer, persuading Cifuentes to go from QPR to there. It's like he hadn't done anything. He was failing it. He was failing at QPR. Plus, I also look at sometimes. It's like, look at the quality of the people you're bringing in. This Cifuentes, when he went to QPR, he was like, oh, I'm so appreciative of the opportunity. Want to work in the Championship. It's a fantastic club. And then as soon as Leicester came, kind of courting him, and he wanted to talk to them, he was probably put on guard. And QPR were like, you can fuck right off, seriously, because you disrespected our club. We've given you a platform. You're not exactly pulling up trees, and yet they'd stuck with him. And then he does that to them. And me and you called it, and I said, will he do anything at Leicester? No, he won't. He'll be abjectly inconsistent, and that's exactly what he's been. there's always the odd exception to the rule, and Norwich have done that this season. I think even they were probably perplexed at the Liam Manning appointment, because Liam Manning was so good at Bristol City, and
Yeah.
he's a Norwich lad, so they obviously thought this is going to be gold, it'll work, because he is a very talented coach, and if it obviously hasn't worked there for him for whatever reason. I'm not sure what's gone on there, but he's a talented coach, and he'll get back into football, and hopefully he'll be given time somewhere. It's one of those where, in hindsight, you're almost like, he must be scratching his head thinking, how did that go wrong? But the guy they brought in, who was at Rangers, Clement, he steadied the ship, and all of a sudden they're winning every game. Look how much they've sailed up the league since then. So, but that's also a point of it. If form changes, you rise through the league really quickly, which is what we were saying a few games later. And I know with Liam Manning, it was like, okay, how long do we keep going? Because he literally couldn't win, and they were losing goals heavily as well.
He lost his first 7 home league games.
Yeah,
you can't do that.
So, but even then, you're like, were they right to get rid of him? They'd turn around and say, well, obviously we were, because look at it now. But and this brings me on to a point I've raised before, which we've discussed again off air, and I raised this earlier in the season. But
no way you could.
Look, I know it won't happen, mate. But if you look at things have definitely escalated this season since we first mentioned this. So last season were clubs sacking managers after 30 days or 40 days. They weren't, were they?
No.
It's now escalated to a level where, for me,
it's ridiculous.
It's only got a certain amount of good talent. I mean, there's probably loads of talent everywhere, but in terms of good coaches who perhaps are ready to take that step at a certain club, who at that certain level, whatever that club might be, regardless of what league you're in, if you keep then just discarding them after so little time, you're almost saying, well, they're not good enough, so we need to think of something else. But there's only a small pool of managers out there. They're not all terrible. You just haven't given them any time.
Yeah.
So if you keep doing this, and these managers then keep going through 3-4 clubs in a season, and they all keep discarding them, where does that leave you? Where's your talent pool? So I do come back to, if this carries on, and it does cause massive upheaval, it would be an interesting trial for me if the league said, hang on, and the League Managers Association got involved and said, this can't keep happening, it's ridiculous. So a new rule, we're going to trial it for a year or 2 years. If you keep saying you've done your diligence, and you keep saying that he's the man for you, and he's going to take you forward, okay then. So at the start of the season, you have this manager. Once you've brought that manager in, you can't change him for the season. Or you suggested maybe in January. But even I think, as a manager, are you really happy to just give them 4 or 5 months? But yeah, maybe give them a January window.
Hang on. It's 2 months longer than some people have been getting.
2 months longer than some, but yeah, it's still. I mean, yeah, God, mate, yeah, 4 or 5 months. That's an eternity as a manager now.
How long gold watch?
5 months. That's incredible. But I do think it would be an interesting experiment that clubs. It might actually show them. So say you gave them a season. Say there wasn't a January get-out clause. Say they had a full season. That coach would know that they have got at least a year to implement what they want to implement, and that club has to back them and stick by them, which would change their philosophy in how they recruit.
And the players would also know, wouldn't they?
The players would know. So the players know what they're going to be getting involved in, and what the coaching regime is going to be, and what it's expected of them. So it's not change. There's no change every 45 days and what have you. And God forbid, who knows? Say they have a really bad 7 or 8 game blip, but then all of a sudden come good. Those clubs will turn around and go, well, I told you we got it right. But a lot of it might be the fact that they've got no choice but to see it out and let it run its course.
That's a brilliant segue to my last point, and then we'll finish on this, right? Okay. Tonda Eckhart at Southampton, right? So he came in and he was interim. And again, weirdly for me, he had 4 wins or 5 wins as interim, so he gets the job. Now, it's slightly weird decision-making, but I get in the heat of the moment, this guy, God, we found an absolute jewel here, right? 4 or 5 wins, he gets the job permanently. Then he couldn't buy a win to save his life, right? Absolutely, really stinking, honking form in the Championship, including Borough thrashing them 4-0 at Riverside in what I can only describe as probably the most abject one half performance. It was 0-0 at half time, and its second half at the Riverside, Southampton looked like a broken team. Not an ex-Premier League team, not a parachute payment team, a team who didn't know what day it was. And he was in that run of form. Now Tonder Eckhardt's turned it back round, and they are seventh, and they are right in the mix for the
They are.
playoffs. Right?
Yeah, they're
He's
flying.
gone. He's gone on a winning run, and that's what you're on about. And what I think is valid is to say, stop. And the whole purpose of this podcast is stop making pressurized knee-jerk reactions based on social media, keyboard warriors, fear of relegation. You know, the Championship is a tough league. 46 games, it's a grind. 3 teams are going down.
Yeah.
There's only 2 going up and 1 going through the playoffs. You can't all be playoff aspirational. You might be aspirational, but how realistic is it?
Accept that it's hard. It's hard. It's
Yeah.
not supposed to be easy. Accept that it just might not be you.
Yeah.
Don't blame it on your coaches every time and your players. Just maybe if you gave some back into them and the confidence, they'd quietly get on and work and do the job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but look how it's very reactive. It seems to be a very reactive business, knee jerk and reactive rather than actually being proactive and confident in your decision making. But it does show that, I hate to say it, football a lot of the time is run by charlatans, isn't it? People,
Yeah.
the people making the decisions, and yet sometimes there's very good people there, but then the owners stump up and say, "I want to do it this way." So the
Yeah.
owners then have the trump card. But yeah, Eckhart is it perfect point in case. He's now flying, and they'll be thinking brilliant. And I think they're in it for the long haul until the end of the season. Now, I think.
Yeah, I do.
But the thing is, you never know. This is what the Championship does. Look at Middlesbrough 4 or 5 games ago, and hopefully they'll win on Monday and start another run. And then, Ipswich, Millwall, they might blip again. You never know what's around the corner in Championships. I do sometimes think owners need to have a bit of faith and also a bit of knowledge that that's the league. Steve Gibson's like that. I mean, even though sometimes the fans can see that actually with Carrick it wasn't working in the 3rd season, you got to take your hat off and say he had nearly 3 years. Nearly 3 years. That's an eternity in football now.
Yeah.
No one gets that. And so there is chairmen of football clubs out there who want to give their managers and their teams that they create time and hope that it works.
We'll finish on that. At the time that Michael Carrick was sacked at Middlesbrough, he was the longest serving manager in the Championship, and he'd only been there 3 years. He'd outstripped everybody else in a 3-year period. On that bonkers note, let's leave it at that, mate. That's been really, really passionate as ever. I love the fact that you want to get that idea in about the managers, transfer window or back. And I think there is a lot of merit in that, mate.
I do think there is. Yeah,
there is. Okay, so that's been episode 37, The Pressure for Success, in association with Huddle Up, our new fan support partners. Huddle Up are providing fantastic well-being, wellness support for football fans, as I say, predominantly Championship, EFL and National League. Adam Franklin, Connor Bottrell doing a great job. So for those who are watching, you can see their contact details. I'll put the contact details in the show notes every week. We've adopted them as our fan partners for the year because we think that they're doing great things around the communities that we serve, that you serve, that support your football clubs. Episode 38, we haven't confirmed what we're going to talk about yet, Dom, because we don't know what's current. We always try and keep it current. We'll think of a subject before we do the next one. But as we say, between now and recording this on the 1st of March and Monday the 9th of March, my club Middlesbrough got 2 massive away games. So by the time we record the next episode, I'll either be, sort of jumping for joy or nervous as hell. But either way, Dom's been an absolute pleasure as ever. Catch up with you soon, mate, and we'll speak to you later.
Yeah, likewise, mate. Thanks, mate. And see you on the next one. Looking forward to it.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.